is your life?
My honor is my life.
What is your fate?
My duty is my fate.
What is your fear?
My fear is to fail.
What is your reward?
My salvation is my reward.
What is your craft?
My craft is death.
What is your pledge?
My pledge is eternal service.
If you've never been a fan of Warhammer, then you are missing out, my friend. The God Emperor smiles upon us, for this game has finally been released, and it has the potential to be the best Warhammer game we have gotten yet. So let's get right into it. For starters, I know there will be plenty of people who have no idea what Warhammer is, so I'll give you a brief explanation. Warhammer is a dark fantasy set in space in the year 40,000. Humans are at war with everyone and any Xeno is a threat. However, not all humans are aligned in the same goals, and some decided to worship demons instead of the God Emperor of mankind. There aren't really good guys and bad guys, since most humans are fanatics that will kill you for the smallest suspicion, just lesser shades of evil. So it's a galaxy-spanning war where everyone is stupidly huge, and sometimes entire worlds will be blown up just because it isn't worth it to try and take them back.
You know what? One time is enough. Exterminate this bitch!
You play as a Space Marine, genetically modified human super soldiers. Okay, now that we are all caught up, let's talk about the game. For those that have played the first Space Marine, you will feel right at home as the opening scene starts off with a Death Watch squad entering yet another suicide mission. Attacked on all sides, this is where the main game begins. The mission acts as a tutorial. You'll learn the basic controls, get a feel for the environment and how to attack. If you really want to jump in with Titus and continue his story, don't worry, we won't be with this Death Chad for too long. We wake up as Titus, officially back in the Ultramarines after a whole 100 years. Yeah, Space Marines can live for centuries, so just roll with it for now. He is demoted from captain but given a new squad to command and tasked with finishing the job that he started. Kill all Xenos. Before I go further, let's talk about how gorgeous this game looks. I mean, hot damn! I haven't wanted to look around a game so much since Doom Eternal. If you are a fan of the tabletop game and how detailed the models can look, then you are in for a treat. Every little area and object is so meticulously crafted with great care that it's hard to find any fault. They clearly spent a long time making these environments, and it pays off. If you want to see the Warhammer universe up close and personal, this is the best way to do so. Servitor skulls fly around, there are massive battles in the background, the particle effects are dazzling. I could go on and on, but there are a few things to mention. The battle barge is like your main hub area in between matches and missions, and I thought it was cool how things would change each time you visited there. A ship might be crashing down, or some mechanicus will be trying to fix equipment, all for those things to change and something else to happen next time. This is just for the campaign, but it goes a long way in making the ship feel a little more alive and not just a simple hub area, even though that is exactly what it is. In fact, it's a little small for what it is. Then again, I'm not really sure what else they would put in here. It's all very minimalist. The game is pretty stable. I never had any full crashes, but I did have some slowdown in the more chaotic moments, though as I've been playing more, these moments became less frequent, so maybe they patched it up by now. The only real issue that I ran into was being stuck on loading screens for some reason. I'm not sure if it's because of server issues or because the game bugged out, but the only way I found I could fix it was by closing everything down and then reopening the game. This was only in multiplayer modes and never happened while I was playing the campaign, and was still very rare. Considering how much this game is trying to run and render, it's impressive that I didn't find more errors to bitch about. In terms of the sound, let's just say I would want to play this on a movie theater screen with surround sound because, again, it is fantastic. Everything from the sounds of the Tyranids to the guns and every voice actor is sublime. I've heard some critics say that certain characters get Boba Fett syndrome because they are on screen for a few minutes or even seconds, but their VO is so good that you can't help but feel excited whenever they speak. This is absolutely true, and I think the main cast does an amazing job as well.
You're being dropped through an active combat zone, dodging flak, enemy ships and burning wreckage on the way down. Exactly. No, this will be a first.
There really isn't a weak link here at all, though if you want my advice, turn down everything just a bit so you can hear that stellar soundtrack when it hits the best moments.
Artifacts tough. Munitions secure.
So, audio is amazing. What's next? Oh yeah, let's talk about the main meat of the game, the gameplay. If you are familiar with Space Marine 1, then this will only be a slight adjustment. Instead of stunning enemies when you want to heal, now you don't heal at all. Wait, what? The gist of what happens goes like this. You find enemies, shoot as many of them as you can before they get too close, then use melee combat to cut them down, and if a blue or red circle appears, you will either dodge or parry that attack from the heavier enemies until they flash red when you can execute them. Executions will now make you invulnerable while regenerating some armor, which is those little white bars under your health, and the same goes for certain actions like the cinematic dome shot. None of these actions replace health, however. The only ways to restore health is by using a stim found in the level, or by quickly gaining it back by dealing damage shortly after gaining damage, like Bloodborne. At first, I didn't like this system. It almost made me want to hide behind cover like a bitch, and be really cautious about taking hits because your shield goes away so fast. Fuck! But then I learned that I was just bad at the combat. I think it actually takes a fair bit of skill to not only be good at crowd control, but also time your parries, dodge the right attacks, and know when to shoot versus when to tear them limb from limb. It's hard to describe it without making this video an extra 10 minutes long. For now, I'll just say that it looks simple but takes more thought than simple button mashing, even if it does turn into that sometimes. I hear a lot of people making comparisons to Gears of War or Helldivers 2. I think it's really odd considering the games couldn't be more different than one another. The closest I can compare this game to is World War Z, since it was made by the same people. If you aren't familiar with World War Z, the video game, other great examples are Darktide and maybe Left 4 Dead. It's a horde shooter, so I really don't know where the comparisons to a cover shooter and an indie explosive surprise come from. The Tyranids make for a great enemy, and you can see the DNA of the engine they used to make both games in this one. Having played World War Z, This feels like they learned from that game and made something that feels a bit more fluid and balanced. Having a horde enemy like the Tyranids feels great to fight with good feedback, and when they storm out in a massive horde, it looks really cool. They're only half of the game, however. I know, I just spoiled that chaos is in the game, but they were shown in the trailer, so it doesn't feel like I'm spoiling something that you shouldn't already know unless you have no idea what chaos is. I have some issues with the chaos faction. While they feel fine and really cool to fight initially, you soon realize that most of their ranks utilize ranged weapons, which would be fine if every single one of them wasn't a massive bullet sponge. Look at this. It takes more than a full magazine to kill most of these guys, and this is on normal difficulty. Thing is, these guys can be a lot of fun to fight on lower levels when they actually feel a bit more balanced. I like the higher difficulties, and I like to fight lots of baddies, but at some point you go from a great horde shooter to the Division. The base game is really fun, and that goes for every game mode this game has to offer. I actually really enjoyed playing the campaign on a harder difficulty, and I love the casual feel the PvP has. I'm only frustrated because it feels like there should have been more. For PvE, we got 6 missions. Of those, 5 take place during the campaign and are like side missions. The AI companions are bad if you're stuck with them, but the characters are pretty good. They make fun chatter and the classes themselves all feel great.
Your target acquisition to hit ratio is surprisingly high, Straven, considering it looks like you fire wantonly into a horde.
I focus on efficiency and ammunition conservation. That is all.
I see. No response to my subtle jest.
No.
As for the missions, they are good missions, but none of them are great. For an example of what I'm talking about, in the campaign there was a section where you had to spin some things while your AI allies protected you. I thought we might get something like this that requires more teamwork and cohesion to accomplish in the co-op missions, but no. We do get some things that are similar, like defending generators or escorting a cart, but nothing that stands out as being truly unique. Even in the final mission, they take more creative freedom and diverge from the campaign to do something more unique. In the wide open exterior, sandstorms cut off vision, making it hard to see the oncoming enemy and make getting separated much easier, but indoors is tight quarters with little wiggle room. I wanted them to do more stuff like this and expand upon some cool unique level obstacles that weren't just defending an objective again. The classes are really good, and I found myself wanting to max out each of them. Each one has a variety of skills, weapons, weapon variants, and cosmetics to unlock. These are straight upgrades and make the harder mission difficulties feel a lot easier. The time to unlock these upgrades is really slow in the beginning, but massively ramps up as you play the harder difficulties. Like, a lot. I just wish that there were more missions to choose from and maybe a server browser so you could see what missions and difficulties are more populated. I hope that when they release the free missions later, they take some of that feedback from the community and add something that makes the levels feel fresh and exciting again. Darktide made a lot of the same mistakes when it released, and since then it has done a lot to make it really enjoyable, so I have hope that this team can do the same. Speaking of lacking content, the PvP. When people say that it feels tacked on, I agree. 3 maps, 3 modes, and a lot of features that just seem to be missing. Thankfully though, the sentiment of feeling unfinished does not carry into the gameplay, as the gameplay is so good that I actually don't mind the lack of maps and modes. Sure, it would be nice to be able to search for all modes randomly like Mixtape and Titanfall, but I'm shocked with how well balanced it is in the first place. Classes have a proper rock, paper, scissors feel to them, meaning that no class feels underpowered or overpowered. Time to kill feels surprisingly good despite my netcode killing me when I'm in cover, and they even went through the effort to change how some classes and their abilities function, such as allowing the Vanguard to grapple anything and the Bulwark to be able to block all damage from the front when his shield is up. On top of that, I thought that the melee combat would be a matter of who swung first, but they made it so you can actually block and stun each other. And the 3 maps are no joke either. Each one has clearly been crafted with every class in mind, so no map feels bad to play on. I will repeat the sentiment that everyone else has been saying. The PvP is clearly unfinished, but it's really good. The PvP and PvE have their share of problems, but I think the fact that they are both fun to play maybe makes it worth it for a lot of people. It certainly is for me. I haven't stopped playing since release. I think what it comes down to is perspective. A lot of people say this is like a game from 2012, and it certainly feels like it in a lot of ways. For some people, that is a great sign and you'll get everything you want from the game in order to justify the price tag. For others who might be expecting the next AAA game of the 2020s, they will either be surprised that it isn't a steaming pile of dog shit that the executives say they'll fix later, or they will be disappointed because it doesn't have the mountains of content that so many other modern games think they need to have. Both are wrong in my mind, especially since we have the roadmap for the next few months and they clearly have some good plans moving forward. I would rather have a game that is good, short, and tight over a game that is mediocre at best, bloated, and over 60 hours to beat every time. If you share that sentiment, then this is an easy sell for you. Man, and we haven't even talked about the story yet. So, spoiler warning. The main story is mostly short and has simple objectives that lead you from one major plot point to the next. They bet more eggs in the basket that the main story would be appealing through its gameplay rather than its quiet moments in between. In those quiet moments of story, we do get some interesting things. Like I said before, the voice acting and the background details are so good that rushing past them feels like a sin. Even the data logs have something interesting to listen to.
Captain Iden gave the order, and in my bones I felt the fear. I know I'm not supposed to.
Simply put, Titus, who has been deranked and recovered from a minor wound a few days ago, is given control over a new squad of big boys. This time he is paired with Carian and Gadriel. Titus keeps his story to himself since it was the reason that his old squad mates, namely a dickhead called Leandros,
Boo! You stink!
accused him of treason and he was punished all those years ago. Despite this, his mystery keeps his new squad mates on edge and Gadriel seems especially suspicious of him. They take down some baddies, help guardsmen not die, at least as quick, and Titus finds out that a top secret project that some higher ups are working on involves a device that he thought he destroyed in the first game. That device almost destroyed a planet, so we really don't want it to be used again. In the process, we learn that we are not the only ones after the device, as the Chaos Space Marines arrive. This is the scene in which they arrive, and it's admittedly lacking in fanfare. You would think that introducing a new enemy faction in the game would be a big deal, but the game treats it like it is just another day in the park. Even Halo 3 had more fanfare when the Flood showed up for a third time, by using clever audio callouts, changing the scenery, and showing you up close and personal what they could do with the new technology of the Xbox 360 at that time. While the fight to save the planets and possibly the systems around those planets goes on, Gadriel becomes increasingly wary of Titus, and eventually tries to kill him because he thinks that he has been behind the Demon Lord's plan the whole time. The three work things out with some really good character moments and callbacks to the first game.
No, this will be a first.
The Codex Astartes does not support this action. But I am looking forward to it.
I think the relationships that are built up between the characters are actually pretty good. They aren't amazing, but for a campaign that is only 5 hours long, it's pretty good. But as good as all that is, it just makes me gush for more, and I really hope that in the potential sequel, we get some truly great character moments that will cause me to feel even more emotions than, "this is badass." Not that that's a bad emotion to have, but it can't carry multiple games with multiple stories like that forever. We then dive headfirst into one of the only set pieces that breaks up the, still very good, gameplay. The fight against the demons and traitors is awesome as the battle begins with a set piece that I really wish we got to be more involved in. The Demon Lord's plan is to use the device to open up a permanent portal to hell, which looks fucking awesome. We get some more awesome battle moments and some real Chad moments from the chapter master Calgar. Finally, we have an awesome boss fight with the Demon Lord. Fight off chaos, yell a whole lot, and save the day. Titus gets promoted and given a new mission since he has clearly proven his worth as a trusted leader. However, in the final reveal of the game, the chaplain reveals himself to be Leandros. You know, the dickhead from the first game. They didn't say anything directly, but I can feel the feud between these two, and I look forward to see how it plays out, so badly. Sadly, we say goodbye to our squad, no, our brothers, and ship off for the next fight. Because in the grim dark future, there is only war. The story of Space Marine 2 is a mixed bag. At times, I see the potential it has to be a great story that could rival some of the memorable games of today. But then it also has enough flaws that I can't argue with someone who feels like it isn't great. I've kinda said that about a lot of the aspects of this game today, haven't I? But the game is doing well. People really like it. So why? This game is casual, in the sense that I can play it in the background while listening to a podcast, even in PvP, and not feel bad for doing so. The feeling of this game is to play it at your own pace and keep it relaxed. People often point at this game and say it feels like a game from 2012. Games from then were more casual and not the monolith of industry that it is today. When games and the dev teams behind them were allowed to be more fun and experiment before they had to worry about quarterly earnings and appealing to the widest audience possible. The game isn't for everyone. I imagine there are people on both sides, casual or veterans, who don't like this game after they play it. It is a $70 game after all. But I think for those like me who have just wanted something to be fun and not competitive or hardcore for a while now, we will like this one. It's all based on your personal opinion. My job as a reviewer is to provide you with my experience and what you can most likely expect. But it is your job to decide if a game is worth it to you based off of whether you agree or disagree with me. And that's what makes gaming so cool. There's something out there for everyone.
It is a little something for everyone.
Damn it, I stooped down to IGN levels. Never mind, the game is amazing and you should buy it without question. Thanks for watching.
For the God Emperor of mankind!